The story begins with the fact that an unknown person drags a bloodied girl along the floor and removes a ring with a precious stone from her finger. This is an engagement ring. The man leaves, leaving the girl lying on the tiled floor. She, half dead, thinks that she does not want to die like this because it is not fair. She mentally begs to help her. The same girl, a brown-haired girl with dark eyes, named Yoon Ha-im, suddenly wakes up in her bed, alive and well. She was woken up by an alarm clock set for 7 in the morning. The girl does not remember what she did yesterday and suffers from dizziness. She touches her left hand, where there is a cross-shaped scar. Suddenly, the door to her room is opened by her mother, who is very angry. She slaps her on the back, and to Ha-im's regret that it hurt, she replies that it should be. She drank so much yesterday that she couldn't walk. Ha-im falls back on the bed as her mother scolds her for still not finding a job with her master's degree. She suggests that she go to the company of Ji Kyung-hoo, her boyfriend. However, Ha-im doesn't want to be seen as a villain, so she's against it. The mother continues to scream, then suggests that she finally marry someone. Ha-im asks what the hell is wrong with her mood, and the mother snaps. Turns out she recently found out she has stomach cancer, and it's in the last stages, so no chance. Ha-im needs to get back on her feet so mom can die in peace. Ha-im is horrified. She cries because she has not yet had time to do so many things for her. They hug in tears. It won't be like before. Advertising in the gym joyfully says that people will no longer know diseases and disabilities because now a cloning program is available. You just need to register your DNA with the Biox company. It turns out that cloning changed life, and not just its duration. People began to eat more, became more violent and reckless. They even cut their fingers live. Him waits for mom outside the operating room until she leaves on a gurney. Her operation was successful. Suddenly, Kyung-hoo approaches, her boyfriend and the head of this company, a young genius. He says that Ha-im should have told him she was here, and she says that Kyung-hoo is very busy. He asks Ha-im's mom how she's doing, and she thanks him, claiming that Kyung-hoo saved her. Suddenly, the secretary calls him, so he has to leave. Ha-im looks sad as she says goodbye to him, and mom asks if things are really good between them. Ha-im asks her not to provoke a fight and to focus on her own recovery. At home, she watches a TV interview with Kyung-hoo, where it is said that he invented cloning technology and was nominated for the Nobel Prize. Ha-im at a cafe with her friend, Yoon-ji. Ta asks why Ha-im stares at the TV if he sees it every day. Ha-im explains that their last meeting was a month ago. Kyung-hoo is very busy with work. Yoon-ji is outraged. Ha-im took such care of Kyung-hoo in college, and now he ignores her. No matter how busy he has to pay attention to his girlfriend. Yoon-ji says she saw crowds of men finding new girlfriends as soon as they became popular. If Kyung-hoo loved Ha-im, he would have proposed marriage by now. Ha-im begins to feel sad. But not wanting to show it, he offers his friend to drink beer. She asks if Yoon-ji has registered her DNA because she works for the police. It's a dangerous job. Ta replies that she is strong enough to not need cloning. Sitting on the waterfront, Ha-im remembers how Kyung-hoo promised that if his experiments were successful, he would erase the scar from her hand. He once confessed his love to her. But now he doesn't even respond to SMS. In a fit of anger, she throws a can of beer, shouting loudly at Kyung-hoo, and it hits him right in the forehead. He was passing by, saw her, and decided to make a surprise. Kyung-hoo apologizes for not paying enough attention to her. She says she understands and turns to leave. He calls out to her. Ha-im yells that 5 years ago he said he couldn't live without her for a day, and now they haven't seen each other for a month. People say that they are no longer a couple. She says that she is tired of this and offers to leave. Kyung-hoo hugs her and apologizes again. He promises never to leave her alone again. He will try his best. Ha-im begins to cry, burying her face in his chest. The next day, Ha-im goes through her entire wardrobe in search of the best look. Kyung-hoo asked her out somewhere, anywhere, for a walk. She dresses in a smart shirt and jeans and remembers how he promised to love her until she got sick of his love. She thinks it's corny, but she's actually happy. She calls Kyung-hoo, but a woman picks up the phone. She says to urgently come to Kyung-hoo's house, then everything will be clear, and hangs up. Ha-im is surprised and doesn't understand what it was. Confused, she freezes in the middle of the street. Her friend's words come to mind that he could find someone else. Ha-im breaks the nearest taxi. Dearly, she thinks that this cannot be. Kyung-hoo would never betray her. The door to his house is open, so Ha-im just walks in. And the first thing she sees is her own corpse in the bathroom. Horrified, Ha-im covers her face with her hand. She thinks she would rather see him in the middle of the betrayal. Suddenly, her phone rings. This is Kyung-hoo. She runs away, leaving the door open behind her. Picks up the phone, and Kyung-hoo tells her that he is delayed at the recording studio, promises to come to her later. Ha-im asks to meet where they planned. She calls her friend while she's on call and tells her that she saw a dead body at Kyung-hoo's house. However, you shouldn't come now because she has a plan to meet Kyung-hoo himself. Yoonji asks if Ha-im can stand meeting him and asks for his address. At Ha-im and Kyung-hoo's meeting, the girl keeps falling into her thoughts and tears the scar on her arm. Kyung-hoo grabs her hand and asks if everything is okay. But he lies that he is and tries to support the conversation. He asks why he was at the studio and how the interview went. He answers that they had a debate, why it is not possible to clone the human brain. To prove that he can't, Kyung-hoo opens the wall of the restaurant, revealing a blooming sakura, and asks if Ha-im remembers their first date. Then Ha-im pulled him to look at the cherry blossoms because they only happen once a year. He says, when you clone a brain, you can't clone memories. Ha-im smiles as he looks at the sakura and asks how he made it bloom in October. It turns out that Biox can also clone plants. They argue, with Ha-im saying that you can only truly enjoy the blooms in the fall, while Kyung-hoo insists that there's nothing wrong with seeing them every day. They watch the fireworks and Kyung-hoo proposes to her. Ha-im is confused. Maybe she dreamed of her own corpse? Kyung-hoo asks if she saw it. Ha-im is scared and asks what exactly. Kyung-hoo laughs awkwardly and asks if she saw the ring, as she doesn't respond. Ha-im shakily apologizes and asks to go home. She gets up from the table and runs to the exit. Kyung-hoo is confused and disappointed. Ha-im's mom watches an interview where Ga-young-hoo is asked why he banned brain cloning, making it impossible to treat his illnesses. He explains that this will not be a cure, but a rebirth. Mom is indignant at how many empty questions they ask him and worries that he has lost a lot of weight. Ha-im runs in. She confusedly answers her mother's question about whether she saw Kyung-hoo and runs to her room. She looks at the picture of her and Kyung-hoo and asks herself why she keeps thinking bad things. She writes herself a note stating that if she sees this first, then she has been cloned. She reaches to put it between the books and finds another note there. At this time, Kyung-hoo is watching the video from his home and sees Ha-im walking in and running out in a panic. Ha-im looks at the unknown note and sees the same text she just wrote. Ha-im goes down to her mom and asks if Kyung-hoo ever brought her home. She answers that she suffers constantly and suffers a lot because she gets drunk to the point of unconsciousness and cannot walk on her own. It happens so often that my mother has already lost count. Ha-im doesn't remember that. Kyung-hoo comes to her house and asks Ha-im's mom over the intercom if she's home. Ha-im yells not to open it, but mom doesn't understand why. At this time, Yoonji kicks out the door to Kyung-hoo's home. Her partner grumbles that it's not even in their area. She rushes into the bathroom. Mom lets Kyung-hoo into the apartment and asks if they had a fight. Offers to cut Kyung-hoo some fruit, but he refuses and says he'll just go upstairs to talk. Ha-im calls 112 and tries to tell them that her boyfriend is threatening her. But they say that this is not the first time she has called them with stories about cloning. Kyung-hoo comes to her door and asks to go with him to the company so that he can explain everything. She yells for him to go away before she calls the police. Ga-young-hoo says that she already did, calling the police to his house, and watches as Yoonji wanders in there through the security cameras. The guards are on their way, but if Ha-im goes with him, nothing will happen to Yoonji. He asks her to trust him despite her fear. She opens the door and cries, asking what he did to her. Yoonji calls Ha-im and says that the corpse is not here, but she found the bloody earring. Ha-im replies that she had a dream and apologizes for the false alarm. Yoonji says that she can always tell her if she is in danger. Ha-im thanks and hangs up. She is already in the car with Kyung-hoo. He takes her to the Biox building, his company. They ride the VIP elevator to the top until Ha-im pulls out pepper spray and demands answers. He says that 2 years ago she badly damaged her head and fell into a coma. The doctors said that one should prepare for the worst. Ga-young-hoo decided to save her at any cost and began work on the memory cloning mechanism. He succeeded. Ha-im demands an explanation. They stop at the 59th floor. Kyung-hoo says that long story short, Ha-im will never die again. She grabs his vest and demands an explanation. The room is filled with capsules containing Ha-im clones. Kyung-hoo says that they are all shells, one of which she saw in the bathroom. He takes her hand, where the wedding ring is, and says that only she is alive and real. Ha-im throws away the wedding ring and says she wants to get out of here. Kyung-hoo doesn't understand why. He explains that he chose her out of all the Ha-im and thought it would make her happy. He offers to marry him again, but Ha-im blows him off with a spray can. She says the police will be here soon. The spray can beeps every time she uses it, and the fact that he saved her does not mean that they should get married. Besides, he was killing her. Kyung-hoo doesn't understand how she can do this. He worked so hard to save her, and Ha-im is not grateful to him. Ha-im tries to leave the room, but her fingerprints don't match. He gets up and says that the police will not come. There is no signal here. He hands her a ring and asks for the last time. Will she become his wife? Ha-im cries and begs to just let her go. He says then they'll just start over and shoots her in the back with a gun. He says he wanted to start over anyway because she broke his proposal. She moans that she does not want to die. He pulls a flask of memories from her head and promises to erase her memories of today. With the last of her strength, she hits him in the face and calls him crazy. He smiles and inserts the flask into the new clone pod. The next morning, Ha-im wakes up in her bed, alive and well. She was woken up by an alarm clock set for 7 in the morning. Ha-im doesn't remember what she did yesterday and suffers from dizziness. Kyung-hoo texts her. He reminds her about the meeting at 9, and Ha-im jumps out of bed, starting to get ready because he is late. She finds a note written in her handwriting. It says that the person who wrote it is already dead, and Ha-im herself is a clone. The author of the note demands to tell the whole world about it. Kyung-hoo goes to pick her up earlier himself because he was worried that she would be late. On his cheek is the morning after yesterday's fight. Ha-im manages to pretend everything is fine and they go on a date. They are sitting in a different restaurant than last time. Kyung-hoo is ordering food. Ha-im remembers what was written in the note. At this time, Yoon-ji receives the results of the blood test from the earring. They match Ha-im's DNA. Ha-im, covering her mouth with her palm, looks with wide eyes at the wedding ring that Kyung-hoo handed her. She does not understand where the truth lies when she thinks about the note. Kyung-hoo asks if she doesn't like the ring. Ha-im laughs nervously that it's beautiful, and Kyung-hoo points out that they can't live apart anymore. However, his offer to go out is interrupted by a phone call from Ha-im. This is Yoon-ji, asking if this is Ha-im. She thought something had happened to her friend and tells about the earring. Ha-im doesn't remember what it was about, and Yoon-ji tells her the events. Ha-im manages to find her way around and confidently lie to Kyung-hoo so as not to arouse suspicion. She hangs up, even though she understood everything, and tells Kyung-hoo to get back on topic. They kiss in the parking lot under fireworks. However, Kyung-hoo is busy. He preserves Ha-im's memories of that evening and offers her to look at wedding dresses tomorrow. He goes home with a memory backup by his side. He is glad that he was finally able to propose to her without any fuss and get her consent. At home, Ha-im calls Yoon-ji and asks where she is now. They meet at the police department and Ha-im tells the whole truth. Yoon-ji is confused, not even immediately believing that this is true. Ha-im cries in her arms, saying that she doesn't understand if it's really her and that she wants to send Kyung-hoo behind bars. Yoon-ji promises to help. They look through the database and determine that Kyung-hoo has already been applied for 3 times, all on Ha-im's behalf. But they were recalled. That is, they were not noticed as fake. This management stopped them. They turn to law offices, but they cannot help. From the point of view of the law, as long as the victim is alive, it cannot be qualified as murder. They still do not have a regulatory framework for this. Yoon-ji gets angry and grabs the last lawyer by the chest. He nervously gives them the business card of a private detective, Ma Gang-ho, and says that he solved a crime related to the Dai-A company. While the friends go to the detective, the lawyer calls Biox and tells him what Ha-im and Yoon-ji came to him with. The friends are looking for Gang-ho, but meet Kyung-hoo. He had a meeting with the police commissioner. He asks where Yoon-ji is based and why she came. Another officer says that she has come to see Detective Gang-ho, but the commissioner replies that he is not there at the moment. Meanwhile, Kyung-hoo reminds Ha-im of their plans together and offers to give Yoonji a ride. They lie to him about why they're looking for Gang-ho, and Kyung-hoo asks if Yoonji registered her DNA. She says no and refuses to do so at his suggestion. Kyung-hoo points out that Ha-im talked a lot about her friend and how she always helps her, and suddenly shoots Ha-im in front of the policewoman. Ta begins to cry as Kyung-hoo explains that no police officer would dare accuse him of anything. And Yoonji won't be able to stop her and Ha-im from getting married. He says that as a friend, Yoonji should worry about Ha-im's future, who can't even get a job because of taking care of her mother. He points a gun at Yoonji and says that only he can make Ha-im happy, not Yoonji. Yoonji says that Ha-im will run away again and again because she knows how Ha-im feels. Kyung-hoo shoots alongside her and says that if Ha-im escapes, he will clone Yoonji as well, but won't save her memories so that only the shell remains. Dropping Yoonji off at her house, Kyung-hoo says that once he and Ha-im get married, he'll never clone her again. After all, he is not such a bad person. Left alone, still covered in her friend's blood, Yoonji sobs. Ha-im dreams of Kyung-hoo asking a professor at the university if it is possible to preserve a person's memories on their shared pair, and the old man says yes, but no one does it for ethical reasons. She wakes up and looks at the wedding ring, determined. Yoonji came to her. She's scared because of Kyung-hoo's words about cloning her, but she can't leave her friend alone with a psychopath. Yoonji rings the doorbell. A fully clothed Ha-im opens up to her. Yoonji starts a speech about being a clone, but Ha-im cuts her off and says that she already knows. After all, Kyung-hoo only erases the memory of one day, and she already knows about cloning for 2 days. Like in a game where you create new saves until you win. Yoonji reveals that Kyung-hoo promised to kill her if she helped Ha-im, but she demands to stop the car and says that she will deal with everything herself. Girlfriends argue. Yoonji looks at Ha-im's scar and says she failed to protect her again, that she'd rather die trying and know she's a good cop and friend. At this time, Ha-im texts Kyung-hoo and reminds him about the dress-fitting meeting. She goes, so she will be able to learn more than if she was hiding. While she's trying on a dress, Yoonji looks for Ma Gang-ho. He's reprimanded by the commissioner for digging under the wrong person and points out that Gang-ho would have been fired long ago if they weren't cousins. Kyung-hoo is also offered to change clothes. While he is standing in the fitting room, Ha-im tries to get into his phone, but she can't do anything. It is locked with a fingerprint. She digs into his jacket when the worker sees it and comes closer with a tray of glasses. Ha-im gets scared, crashes into the employee, and the glass with the tray scatters on the floor, and her clothes get dirty. Kyung-hoo, angry as hell, yells at the worker and the owner, demanding that the former be fired immediately. What if they hurt Ha-im's face? Ha-im tries to stop him, but he covers her mouth. She yells at him to shut up and accuses him of making people inferior to him because of his own wealth and intelligence. Does he like her because she is easy to handle? He kicks the workers out of the store and closes the door. Ha-im realizes that she said too much. Kyung-hoo says she has a look like she doesn't love him anymore, but that's okay. They can start over. Realizing that she is about to be killed, Ha-im desperately kisses him. It helps. In the evening, they say their goodbyes, and Ha-im manages to pull the memory pad from his pocket. Yoonji does contact Gang-ho and tells him everything they found out. Gang-ho asks why they came to him, and Yoonji replies that he is not like other police officers. After all, he had previously arrested the head of a large corporation. Yoonji is inspired to find help. Gang-ho says he will help and tears up the evidence documents they collected and throws them in the trash. He claims that liquidating that company was a mistake, that he never got promoted after that. He advises her to forget about her friend's case and just work in her area. It's her duty as a police officer. Without power, they will not solve anything. Yoonji is disappointed and angry. She accuses Gang-ho of being a coward and runs away. Gang-ho thinks that he just said that he doesn't have the power to solve her problem, but after thinking about it, he goes into the trash can to collect the evidence documents. At home, friends are trying to connect the block with memories to the computer. They think it's a flash drive. Yoonji accuses her of being reckless, but Ha-im brushes it off. She would resurrect again. The only thing Kyung-hoo can do is kill her, which doesn't scare Ha-im. She is determined to break him. Meanwhile, Kyung-hoo looks at the stand with Ha-im's memory sticks in horror. He notices that one is missing. He guesses that Ha-im took him, but doesn't understand when things went wrong. At this time, his personal secretary and assistant Gil arrives and says that the police commissioner wants to see him. He agrees to let him in. He worries that he will be in trouble if the news that he refused to accept Ha-im's statements is leaked to the media. Gyeong-hoo reassures him by showing him his VIP service for people who are at risk of becoming victims of contract killing. He clones them. There are celebrities, heads of states, and companies. An attack on Biox will be seen by customers as an attack on themselves. No one will dare to do this. Gyeong-hoo points to the empty capsule and suggests that the commissioner join their power. Meanwhile, the friends try to turn on the unit, but nothing works until Ha-im accidentally presses it against his forehead. They understand that this is a block of memory. Suddenly, Yoonji calls Kyung-hoo. To panics, but Ha-im tells her to get the phone. Jong-hoo asks if Ha-im said anything weird and then asks for her advice. He almost ruined the date. Yoonji asks him to call back tomorrow. They decide that Ha-im will go on a date with him. Meanwhile, Gyeong-hoo keeps in touch with Yoonji through a headset and gives him advice in live time. She advises him to turn on the music, but it's her favorite music, not Ha-im's. But he pretends that everything is fine. Kyung-hoo takes them to a gaming club. Ha-im can't play, but she's involuntarily excited and Gyeong-hoo is happy that she's so happy. They eat ice cream and ice skate, Gyeong-hoo can't, eat lobster, and generally spend time as a normal couple. However, Ha-im thinks it was more like hanging out with Yoonji than a date with Hoo. Jun-hoo says that Ha-im played great today and shoots her. He understood everything. He asks if Yoonji knew. He asks her to bring the memory stick. Ha-im wakes up with a headache next to Kyung-hoo. They are in his lab. Gyeong-hoo tries to figure out when Ha-im found out about the cloning by downloading memories from different days over and over again. The entire lab is littered with Ha-im's dead bodies. Finally, he finds the right day, the 17th. He understands this from Ha-im's look. He is disappointed that he will have to propose again. In tears, she asks why he is doing this to her. He does not understand the question. After all, they promised each other to always be together. Eun-ji drops her coffee as Gyeong-hoo shoots Ha-im in the car. He demands to hand over the flash drive, otherwise Ha-im will continue to die. He suggests calling tomorrow. Kyung-hoo takes the version of Ha-im that suits him home. The mother thinks that the daughter is stressed because of the lack of work. Gang-ho is in the 112 command center, drinking coffee with the dispatcher and pulling information about Ha-im's request for help. He then reads articles about Gyeong-hoo and the commissioner notices. He asks what Gang-ho is up to. And he reminds that if he climbs where he is not asked, he will forever remain a simple detective. Im wakes up in her room with a headache. The date, October 20th, lights up on the phone screen. Although she does not remember the last few days. She asks what day it is at Mom's. Ta holds out an unknown cocktail and says that Kyung-hoo left it. She has memory lapses due to stress, and this should help. Suddenly, Yoonji arrives and drags a confused Ha-im outside and puts a memory stick on her head. This is what Ha-im ordered her to do if she was killed again. Yoonji says she will return Kyung-hoo's flash drive so that Ha-im won't be killed every day. Ha-im is against it, as this is important evidence, but Yoonji asks her to think about herself. She shouts that no one will help them. The police will not investigate this case. The lawyers are on Biox's side. They are alone and they are helpless. Ha-im says she's scared too, but if they keep making sacrifices, the other her will never escape Gyeong-hoo. She fights not to be his puppet. Yoonji agrees not to give the flash drive, but in return asks Ha-im to follow her plan. Hoo comes to Ha-im's house and chats with her mom, giving her some bottles. He asks why Ha-im doesn't pick up the phone. She says that Ha-im went somewhere and warned her that her phone would be turned off. It turns out that hiding somewhere is Yoonji's plan. After all, there is no point in cloning Ha-im if she is somewhere alive. They arrive at Yoonji's parents. Ha-im will be hiding there. Meanwhile, Yoonji is going to tell the media all about it. She is interrupted by Gang-ho, who has been looking for her. He hits Yoonji over the head with an upturned newspaper and asks where she's gone forever. She can't be found at the workplace. Yoonji is belligerent as she pours him coffee, but asks why he came. Gang-ho asks her to calm down and asks how things are going. She talks about the problems with the lawyers, and Gang-ho explains why they refuse. If cloning becomes illegal, they will cut their own lifespans. No one will agree to such conditions. He tests her principles by asking if she would help a stranger rather than a friend. even if it means sacrificing her sick mother. But Yoonji stands her ground. Gang-ho smiles. He tells her that there are those protesting against Biox, and that among them are lawyers, and leaves, confident that she understood him. At that moment, Kyung-hoo calls Yoonji and calls her to Biox. Ta says that if Gang-ho wants to help, let him do it normally. Ha-im plays with Yoonji's parents' dog and recalls that she once refused to get a dog because they die early. Kyung-hoo then asked what if they could live forever, said he would change the world. Yoonji's mom hands her the phone. It's her mom calling. She knew where her daughter was, but she didn't tell Kyung-hoo. She stands by the fact that Kyung-hoo is a very nice person and does not understand her daughter's arguments that this is not the case. Mom says Kyung-hoo left Ha-im a voicemail and suddenly passes out. This is a reaction to the liquid given by Kyung-hoo. Gang-ho gives Yoonji a ride to Biox. She asks him to help if she doesn't come back in an hour. He shouts that this is his last favor. A crowd protesting against cloning under Biox. In Biox, Kyung-hoo treats Yoonji to dinner. But he does not understand what it is for. He explains that Ha-im is missing. Yoonji tries to pretend she doesn't know anything about it. However, he is not impressed by her attempts. Suddenly, Ha-im herself enters, determined. When her mom passed out, Ha-im listened to the message Kyung-hoo left for her. He said she wouldn't get to the surgeon without a family member telling her, and that made Ha-im come back. Kyung-hoo points a gun at Yoonji and asks if she told Ha-im about the cloning. Ha-im tries to cover up for her friend and shows the note she wrote to herself. She falls to her knees and in tears asks to save her mother. He can kill her as much as he wants in return. He puts the gun away with a smile and says he's not a bad guy. He does not meet her to kill. Kyung-hoo puts the gun in front of Yoonji and tells her to kill Ha-im. Ta apologizes to Ha-im, takes a gun, and suddenly points it at Kyung-hoo. Ha-im cries, begging Yoonji not to do this because she needs to save her mother, and she needs Kyung-hoo to do that. In pain, Yoonji shoots Ha-im. However, instead of a bullet in the gun, there is a ball with blue paint. The moment of relief ends as Kyung-hoo pulls out a second gun and shoots Ha-im, killing her. He says he was sure Yoonji would shoot him, but now he trusts her. Gang-ho looks on in protest as Yoonji walks out of the Biox building with a blank face. As they drive home, Yoonji tells him what happened and regrets that they should have shot Kyung-hoo. Then at least they would have died together. He is irritated by her weakness. He says that becoming a victim is not a feat, but irresponsibility, because it will not help Ha-im in any way. If she wants to save her friend, she must live to the last. It helps. Yoonji is again inspired by the fighting spirit. Kyung-hoo impales another corpse of Ha-im into the coffin and approaches the new body in the capsule. He kisses her hand and burns the scar on her hand so that it will be like hers always. The next morning, Ha-im wakes up with a headache and goes to look for her mother. She again does not remember what happened yesterday. She sees a text message from Kyung-hoo that her mother's cancer has returned and she is in the hospital. In the hospital, her mother reassures her that she is fine. Kyung-hoo enters. Ha-im rushes to him anxiously. Will everything be okay with Mom? Exactly? He confirms it. Im doesn't remember what happened, and he tells her the story that when he brought her home, Mom fell unconscious. Mom worries that she has memory lapses at such an early age. Kyung-hoo promises to check on her soon. Ha-im is in the bathroom trying to remember what she did yesterday, when suddenly Yoonji sneaks up on her in a hoodie and plugs in the memory stick. They talk on the street. Yoonji tells what happened yesterday and about Gang-ho's help, about the Center for Bioethics, which is against cloning. Ha-im cuts her off. She offers to surrender. She can't risk her mother. Yoonji tries to argue, but Ha-im asks her to pretend she doesn't know anything. Yoonji objects and Ha-im yells at her, saying it's her life and up to her. That she always stuck her nose in her affairs, since childhood, and going to her was a mistake. Yoonji grabs her hand and turns her towards him. It turns out that Ha-im is crying. She says that she will never run away from Kyung-hoo and asks him to forget everything once again. Yoonji lets her go and Ha-im leaves. Kyung-hoo and Ha-im are on the liner enjoying their date. Yoonji and Gang-ho watch over them from above from the restaurant. Gang-ho knows everything. He asks if Yoonji plans to give up because of Ha-im's words. Ha-im gives Kyung-hoo the flash drive with the memories and says that he can no longer pretend that he doesn't know anything. She cries because of a smile and asks to treat the next her well. She jumps off the deck herself. She thinks he looks at her like a lab rat. She remembers how Yoonji suggested that she should not die at Kyung-hoo's hands, but rather at her own. At this time, Yoonji puts on a diving suit and jumps off the pier into the water. She finds Ha-im. She smiles. No one can find Ha-im's body. Kyung-hoo asks not to declare her dead and to report immediately if the body is found. Girlfriends swim far from the place where the liner sailed. They are met by Gang-ho. In the car, he asks what the plan is. Yoonji says that Kyung-hoo must think Ha-im is dead and clones her again. There will be 2 of them. This is proof of cloning. Yoonji is in a very good mood, but Ha-im is not. Something worries her. Kyung-hoo sit in your office in Biox. In front of him is a note from Ha-im and a flash drive. He underestimated Ha-im. Ha-im's mother calls him and asks where her daughter is, because she is still not at home. He promises to bring her back tomorrow, and Mom agrees. Kyung-hoo touches the glass of the capsule that holds Ha-im's clone and says that he wasn't perfect, but he'll never let her down again. Ha-im and Yoonji are at the latter's house, looking at old school photos. Ha-im worries that Kyung-hoo knows about their plan and isn't cloning her. Yoonji assures her that everything is fine and that Ha-im will be too. They will manage somehow. Suddenly someone rings the doorbell. It's Kyung-hoo. He's shooting Yoonji from the doorway. Ta tells Ha-im to run. However, Kyung-hoo catches Ha-im by putting his hand over her mouth and tells her that he will always find her. She will never escape from him. He shoots Ha-im and she ends up on a mountain of corpses, her own and Yoonji alone. She wakes up in terror. It's just a dream. In the morning, Yoonji says that they will go to bioethics as soon as she finishes work, while Ha-im should prepare something to eat. But he promises to do so. But when the door closes behind Yoonji, Ha-im starts to dress inconspicuously, thinking that going to court might not help, and that she has to be careful or Mom and Yoonji will be in danger. She takes a knife from the kitchen counter. The best she can do is kill Kyung-hoo. She is supposed to be dead anyway, and the next, she will be able to live without suspecting anything. She waits near her own house, but Kyung-hoo doesn't come. Mom already goes to work at 10 o'clock, and Kyung-hoo and the clone are nowhere to be found. Maybe he hadn't cloned her yet? She enters her home, thinking that no one is there. While she is thinking about things, Kyung-hoo arrives with the new Ha-im on his shoulders. Old Ha-im hides around the corner of the corridor. She hides in her closet and watches as Kyung-hoo puts her clone to bed. She trembles, clutching the knife. Suddenly, Kyung-hoo goes to the closet and opens the door. Fortunately, Ha-im manages to hide in a corner and he doesn't see her. She thinks this is her chance to kill him but does nothing. She is trembling. Ha-im sees Kyung-hoo, attach a small camera to one of the closet shelves and close the door. He kisses Ha-im lying on the bed and says that they will see each other tomorrow. Insha Ha-im falls out of the closet and lies on the floor so that the camera, which is attached quite low, won't capture her. She leaves without completing her task. At this time, Yoonji returns home for lunch. She is looking everywhere for Ha-im, but she has not yet returned to her house. She runs out of the house and calls Gang-ho to tell him that Ha-im is missing. He yells at Yoonji that she should be with Ha-im and drives to her house. They both cross paths with Ha-im at the crossroads. Yoonji yells at her friend because what she came up with is suicide and she didn't even think about the people she cares about. Ha-im talks about the hidden camera. Yoonji says that you can go to the police for this, but Gang-ho points out that for such a crime he faces a maximum fine, or even nothing. It's Kyung-hoo. New Ha-im wakes up with a headache and sits down at her desk. She reads a text message from Kyung-hoo where he says that she is also anemic and passed out, and the medicine is on the table. Kyung-hoo watches her through the camera. He sees how she finds the note she left for herself, about cloning. Old Ha-im sit in the car with Yoonji and Gang-ho. She recalls being scared in the locker and not being able to kill Kyung-hoo. Gang-ho asks her not to take on too much. Their chance for hope is in bioethics. They park near a small, ramshackle building. At this time, New Ha-im looks at the hair tonic and does not understand when it ran out. Kyung-hoo watches over her. The Trinity enters bioethics. It is an abandoned building where, at first glance, there is no one. They are not even sure that they got there, but someone is watching over them. They go into a room where a man is begging Mrs. Peck because he can no longer continue his work. His wife has cancer and he wants to cure her. Peck, a gray-haired woman with a prosthetic arm, asks how she can help, calling them officers. They don't understand how she knows. Peck notes that they are not searched and calls them a motley company. They tell it like it is, and Baek, on the verge of tears, hugs Ha-im, sympathizing with her. Ha-im is embarrassed by this. Peck says they've come to the right place. However, the number of bioethics decreases every week, and even Biox does not consider this team a threat. And that's for the better. After all, they missed something. Peck takes them to a new room, high-tech and full of people. She says that these are real members of the organization. Ga Yong-hoo watches over the new Ha-im and tells his security personnel to keep an eye on Ha-im and Yoon-ji. Meanwhile, security divers are still searching for Ha-im's body in the river. Their boss calls Kyung-hoo to withdraw the missing person report, and he promises money to continue the search. Lured by this, they continue to search. Kim Yong-gu, a chubby brown-haired guy from bioethics, complains about processing and notes that only a blueberry pie can save him. However, it is not in the refrigerator. He runs to his friend Jae-gun, a brunette in a wheelchair, to complain, only to find him just about to finish his cake. Yeon-gu is infuriated to the point of screaming. In the meantime, Peck gives the trio a tour of bioethics, telling them that everyone here has their own motivations, but everyone is united by the goal of destroying Biox. She says that they all respect each other and opens the door to the two boys' office. They quarrel. But when Young-gu sees Yoon-ji, he instantly forgets everything. They tell the boys about Ha-im's situation. Yoon-ji enthusiastically dreams how Peck, with her experience as a lawyer, will solve everything, because the two Ha-ims are proof of a violation of bioethics. However, Beck says that the court will side with Biox, plus it is not known what Kyung-hoo will do in this case. Yoon-ji asks where this confidence comes from. Peck explains that she already lost the court case. People were cloned even before Ha-im. She offers to show Ha-im live because Biox won't have time to face the live broadcast. People will be shocked to see two Ha-ims in one frame. Yoon-ji is against making Ha-im a TV pet, but Beck thinks it's the only way out. Gang-ho points out that Biox can call the video fabricated. Peck agrees. It all depends on whose side the media chooses. Yoon-ji yells at her that they didn't save Ha-im to throw her in hell. Biox says that everyone is risking their lives here, and Ha-im is their hope and Kyung-hoo's only weakness. Ha-im agrees, and she is left at the bioethics apartment complex. Yoon-ji and Gang-ho go home. Gang-ho points out that Ha-im is very brave. He would run away. Yoon-ji answers that since childhood she believed that she should sacrifice herself. When he brings Yoon-ji home, he blocks the car door, preventing her from getting out, and tells her to duck because they are being followed. This is Kyung-hoo's security service. Noticing a black SUV from which no one got out, the men begin to chase them. Gang-ho manages to trick them by parking in a dark corner, and they lose track of them. After getting out of the car, they run into one of the workers. Colleagues ask through the headset how he is doing, and the man, instead of informing about them, says that there is no one here. This is Eunjin acquaintance and former colleague Han Ho. One of the security guards suddenly sees Yoon-ji walking down the alley resolutely with clenched fists. He asks Woongjin what to do, and he says to just watch until she starts acting suspicious. Woongjin and Gang-ho talk in the car. It turns out that Woong-ji started working for Kyung-hoo after his treatment at Biox. It doesn't matter what he does. He saved him. Another SB employee takes pictures of old friends. He realized that Eunjin had betrayed them. Yoon-ji returns home and fearfully peers at her tail through the curtains. Ha-im watches with a smile as Yeon-gu and Jae-gong have a brotherly fight on equal ground. Peck approaches her and asks how her room is. Ha-im asks what happened to the other people who were cloned. Peck blankly replies that they are most likely still being cloned. Biox, Organic Material Processing Unit, Line 1. People in chemical protective suits work near capsules. An unknown man turns to a Biox employee with the fact that he is often sick. He calls him to the examination room, where the man's memories are drained and a clone is injected into him. The original is burned. It turns out that this is exactly what Biox is doing. The partial cloning they advertise is not possible, so they just completely clone the body and transfer the memories. One of Biox's professors could not stand it and came to bioethics, becoming their informant. However, on the day he was supposed to appear in court as a witness, he was caught. All his memories were erased and he could not remember anything. The trial was lost. These deaths, which cannot be detected, help Biox commit crimes. However, thanks to Ha-im, they have a chance. Baek asks her to tell everything about Kyung-hoo to find his weaknesses. Suddenly, Jae-gong runs in and hands over the phone. Yoon-ji is calling. With her being followed, she won't be able to lead Ha-im. Ha-im offers to film the cloning of other people in Biox, but Paek says that Biox is impossible to break into. Their security service is the best in the world. The old Ha-im 1 suggests that the new Ha-im 2 come to work at Biox. She is just looking for a job. Ha-im suggests that once the new version hits Biox, she will come on one of her weekends and shoot a video. Everyone, especially Yoon-ji, thinks it's very dangerous. But Ha-im says that bringing the new Ha-im to bioethics is also dangerous. But Ha-im never wanted to go to Biox. Then a plan appears in Ha-im 1. Him 2 finishes her interview at Genomics and talks to Kyung-hoo about it. He offers to treat her to dinner, but she refuses. She should be pampered after getting a job. Yeon-gu and Jae-gong disguise themselves as Biox employees and intercept Ha-im 2 after the interview. They need to convince Ha-im 2. Kyung-hoo instructs his secretary to contact Genomics and tell them to deny Ha-im employment. Also, Kyung-hoo summons Yoon-ji and the team and asks for a photo where he is with Gang-ho. Woong-ji lies that Gang-ho was digging up dirt on Biox and that Biox warned him not to. He shoots Kyung-hoo in front of him to prove his loyalty and is cloned. At work, Gang-ho remembers how Eun-jin got to the hospital. He was shot during one of the tasks. Eun-jin was paralyzed and wanted to die so as not to be a burden to his wife. Then Kyung-hoo came to him and offered to become a participant in the cloning experiments. Then, in the car, Eun-jin explained that he lives for Ga-young-hoo and asked about the purpose of Gang-ho's life. After all, he knows the price for interfering in the affairs of large corporations. Suddenly, Gang-ho calls his cousin, the commissar, to dinner. They go to the restaurant where Kyung-hoo is already waiting for them. The pursuit of Ha-im 2 is cut off. The people from bioethics cover it with themselves. Yeon-gu and Jae-gong call her to the cafe to talk. Ha-im 1 is in touch with them at this time and tells them what to say to convince her to join Biox. They point out that she perfected the cloning algorithm that Kyung-hoo did. Because of this, she can reveal it to another company, which is why she is so valuable to Biox. Ha-im 2 claims that she would never do that. Ha-im 1 stresses that she should be grateful to her mother and finally get a job. Ha-im 2 gives up. She asks with a sad look to give her time to think. Ha-im's mom asks how the interview went, and at that moment she gets a message from Genomics that she failed. Yeon-gu and Jae-gong are shaking with nerves in the alley. Trying to convince Ha-im took a lot of strength from them. They question whether she really completed the equation. Ha-im asks not to tell Baek about it. Now Ha-im 2 will think about getting a job in Biox. It remains to hit her weak point. Ha-im 1 is determined to deceive herself. Her mother's friend comes over and immediately asks if Ha-im got a job. But, feeling sad, she says that she is going to visit a friend. She is actually going on a date with Kyung-hoo. They eat melon ice cream, Ha-im's favorite flavor. She says that she was refused again. She begins to cry, saying that she is ashamed to take money from her mother. Kyung-hoo calmly suggests that she go to Biox, to the marketing department. Yoon-ji, who is in touch with him, starts yelling for him not to talk to Ha-im like that as she cries. She says to give her a napkin, and when she calms down, invite her to look at the ocean. They admire the water and kiss. Ha-im gets better and thanks Kyung-hoo. He thanks Yoon-ji for helping him with the date. She asks permission to see Ha-im tomorrow. If he doesn't trust her, she can turn on the microphone. He allows. Yoon-ji asks what she should do tomorrow. Ha-im 1 tells her to just support her other version, but in front of her mother's friends. The women flaunt their husbands and children, but Ha-im's mother has nothing to say. Ha-im 1 tells Yoon-ji to get Ha-im 2. Ha-im 1 tries to run away because now she will be shamed. But her mother stands up for her and tells how well she studied. Suddenly, Ha-im 1 runs into Kyung-hoo. Yoon-ji meets up with Ha-im 2. It suddenly turns out that Kyung-hoo asked to go with them. Yoon-ji is shocked. Ha-im 1 too. Things have gone sideways and she doesn't know what to do, looking confused at Kyung-hoo. He notes with a smile that Ha-im is injured, asks where Yoon-ji is, and is surprised by her clothes. She usually comes to a date in a different way. Yoon-ji, who heard this through the earpiece, nervously calls Ha-im 2 to another cafe. Ga-young-hoo asks about last night's date. What did Ha-im like the most? Yoonji asks Haim-2 about it, and Haim-1 manages to get away with it. Not for long, however, because Kyung-hoo starts asking about other details. Haim-2 then starts crying and tells how hard it is for her to be unemployed. How much longer should she live like this? Kyung-hoo, trained from yesterday, hands her a napkin and apologizes. He notes that this was insensitive of him. Haim-1 flees to the restroom. At this time, Haim-2 asks why Yoonji is late. Kyung-hoo is waiting for them. Girlfriends understand that the problem is only her. Haim-1 throws his clothes at Yeon-gu and demands to convince Haim-2 to put them on. Yeon-gu approaches her friends and says that Yoonji is his type of girl and holds out her hand to her. Haim is delighted. Yoonji is confused. He asks to talk to her alone for a while. Haim agrees and walks away. Yeon-gu gives Yoonji's jacket and she puts it on Haim-2, arguing that it's drafty from the air conditioner. The girls bump into Haim's mom and then Kyung-hoo walks up. They all join mom's friends. Haim is very embarrassed by the attention Kyung-hoo is getting and the questions about marriage. One of mom's friends points out that the marriage is too early because Haim doesn't have a job yet. The women start discussing that it's okay not to work with a man like Kyung-hoo. Haim is sad. She cuts the women off and says that she has her own dreams, and they didn't start dating Kyung-hoo because of the money. After that, she goes to the toilet to be alone. There she is crying, hiding in the toilet cubicle. Haim-1 thinks she understands her perfectly. After all, they were one person, and so she has a plan. Yoonji writes to Kyung-hoo that this is his chance to help Haim with her self-esteem. Just do what she says. Yoonji voices that HR tried to recruit her, and it wasn't Kyung-hoo who recommended her. Kyung-hoo says that it is. Haim is exceptionally talented. Yoonji presses on asking how Haim will do, but she agrees under the gaze of her mother, who is very happy. Haim-1 peeks out from the toilet, smiling in relief. Her plan succeeded. However, when they return to bioethics, Jae-gong's office is in shambles. Jae-gong says that Gang-ho betrayed them and arrested Baek. Then, at the meeting between Kyung-hoo and Gang-ho, the former started blackmailing him, threatening his 2 children, and he promised a promotion for good behavior. Baek asks how long he's been on Biox's side. Gang-ho says that he didn't choose a side. Baek just took him for her right away, and that was her mistake. He's just a cop doing his job. He asks her about the uncoordinated rally held by bioethics. He says that for continuing such behavior, she faces a prison term, not a fine. Haim says that Gang-ho is not the kind of person to betray. Jae-gong points out that they can't know for sure. If they hadn't brought him to the base, everything would have been fine. Now Jae-gong is suspicious of Haim as well. He accuses her of pretending to be the victim. After all, her story sounds crazy. She completed the cloning algorithm and now wants to fight against Biox. Suddenly, Baek enters. She was released. She heard Jae-gong's last words and demands confirmation. Did Haim really complete the algorithm? She grabs Haim by her clothes and yells at her. If not for Haim, the age of cloning would not have come. Her husband would be alive. Haim calmly agrees and offers to kill her. The person who created this world. Baek can't. Haim breaks free and shouts that she has already lost her life, that she was completing the algorithm, not knowing that she would be killed, and that there is a difference between creating an algorithm and using it for evil. They will never beat Biox if they are so easily hacked. After all, until Haim did not appear, all they could do was protest. If they want to use it, let them do it wisely. Haim is leaving. Baek exhales and calls her back. You can't defeat Biox on your own. She apologizes. It's Haim-2's first day of work at Biox. She is alarmed but determined. Kyung-hoo is also happy. He finally has Haim by his side professionally. You can always look at her. Gil isn't sure if Haim should work for the company, but Kyung-hoo reassures her that she won't cross paths with the clone department in the marketing department. Gil is alarmed, but he cuts her off. Gang-ho is promoted. Everyone congratulates him, except Yoonji, who is very angry with him. In the break room, Yoonji asks why Gang-ho betrayed them. Is Kyung-hoo so scared? Did he plan to surrender the base from the beginning? Gang-ho yells back at her, asking if she would like Biox to come there by himself and see Haim-1. And so Gang-ho manages to make it so that Baek just gets away with a fine. He got caught, but tried not to make the situation worse. Yoonji says that he should apologize to Baek, but he is against it. He can't go to bioethics. That's all he can do for them. He asks Yoon-ji to never come again. She doesn't know about children, so she calls him a coward. After her, he says that one day her ideals will be shaken, whether they are right or wrong. But if she stands firm, she will win. He apologizes and asks her to protect herself. The head of marketing, Chae Tae-sik, gathers the employees and tells them to work with the newcomer in the usual format. What they have heard about her is not important. In his own office, he trembles with terror. If he indulges her, the work will fall apart. If not, Kyung-hoo will take his head off. He decides that he will not indulge. Just look at him from above. Ha-im greets all the new colleagues as the manager comes out. He says that he will introduce her to everyone and calls her to the conference room. He brags about his department and asks if there are any questions. Ha-im says that according to the latest graphs, the number of DNA registrations is decreasing and the number of rejections is increasing. Does this mean the marketing department has a problem? In his mind, he yells at her, accusing her of being insolent like the headmaster's girlfriend. But out loud, he only accuses the team of ignoring schedules. Ha-im asks why 5% of the population thinks cloning is risky. Tae-sik blames bioethics and Peck in particular. Ha-im offers to start a court case against them and redouble their cloning propaganda efforts. Yeon-gu wakes up Ha-im in the morning and says that he has been thinking for a long time. She should choose a name. He shows Ha-im 2 figurines, a black one and a white one, and says that now Ha-im is a rider of darkness, Dark Ha-im. And the new clone is an innocent and innocent creature, Svitla Ha-im. He is interrupted by Jae-gong, who demands to fix the boiler. Yeon-gu says that distinguishing between the two Ha-ims is very important. Tae-sik criticizes Svitla for the idea of suing bioethics, trying to do it as sneakily as possible. Colleagues are surprised that he dares to argue with the director's girlfriend. Ha-im cries in the toilet, but then pulls herself together and tries to blend in with the team. The team exploits her, chasing her for small tasks, but she is generally friendly. Tae-sik thinks that reading her out was the right decision. That's how the team will accept her. But the idea itself is good. He calls the legal department and asks if there are any lawsuits against bioethics. However, all matters related to bioethics are for some reason inhibited. For security reasons, the legal department cannot explain why. Tae-sik is surprised. Suddenly, Kyung-hoo calls him over and asks how Ha-im shows himself. Tae-sik calls her proactive, and Kyung-hoo points out that he was very strict with her. Tae-sik is scared and apologizes, but Kyung-hoo points out that he has the right to scold her if Ha-im does something wrong. He can scold her to make Ha-im realize how good Kyung-hoo is. Bioethics shows Dark Ha-im a new technology, a contact lens with a camera. This is required to record the video in the cloning center. Baek asks how she plans to do it. When Svetla isn't at work and when she's at home, Kyung-hoo watches her through the camera. But Timnaya has a plan. Kyung-hoo asks via text if Ha-im wants to go home together. But against, what will others think? When Svetla gets on the bus, Yeon-gu, who was following her, signals to the others. Temna heads to Biox. The only time you can get there without Kyung-hoo knowing is when Light is going home. When they plan to break into Biox, they studied the security system from the outside. There is a lot of security in the front, and an employee's fingerprint is required to get inside. Baek says it's dangerous to send Ha-im alone, but Ha-im insists that she's a coworker now, everything will be fine. Plus, they don't need to immediately make a recording in the laboratory. She is looking for anything useful. She has 10 minutes so that Kyung-hoo doesn't suspect anything. Ha-im is determined. However, when she goes inside, the connection is lost. The entire building is surrounded by a field that blocks radio waves. Ha-im stops hearing her friends and realizes that she is alone. She sets her alarm for 10 minutes and decides to look around. She passes through security and enters the elevator, already tired. In Biox, there are 20 common floors above and 20 basements. Ha-im does not understand why there are so many underground floors and decides to exit on the 10th. At this time, her friends are nervous in bioethics. Ha-im walks out on the development floor and finds HR. She runs out of time and goes to the elevator. There she meets Tae-sik, but of course she doesn't recognize him. He asks if she has seen the director, and she replies that she doesn't even know where his office is. Tae-sik tells that Kyung-hoo's office is on the 20th floor, and above are the research laboratories. It is impossible to get there without a pass. Tae-sik holds her back. He has a question. Light Ha-im is almost home. The team is nervous about this because this is how Kyung-hoo will notice that something is wrong. Paek is definitely going somewhere. Kyung-hoo asks Gil to prepare a car for him. Tae-sik warns her that the principal is a little weird. He asks to scold her, but not to make her quit. Hadn't he sent her to the marketing department to spy? Ha-im sees the camera looking right at her and realizes it too. She brushes off Tae-sik and leaves, promising to pretend they didn't talk. While Temna is still walking around Biox, Svetla is already coming home. But Yoonji stops her in time and calls her for ice cream. Yoonji sits in the company car and wonders how Ha-im is doing. Her partner is surprised that she is so pedantic and constantly started to run away from the service, and another would have already told the manager about her. Yoonji promises that this will not happen again. As a thank you, the partner offers her a lunch together, with a date in mind. But at that moment, Yoonji calls Peek and asks for help. Yoonji escapes from the post again and stops Light Ha-im in time. Dark Ha-im tries to leave Biox, but she is chased by security at the behest of Kyung-hoo. The friends blind them with headlights so that Ha-im can escape. Svetla and Yoonji are eating ice cream, and Ha-im asks why her friend isn't on patrol. She's not one to avoid work. Yoonji lies that it's because of a guy who came over to meet her. They don't see Yoonji's partner, who has followed her and is eavesdropping on the conversation. He is disappointed. But at that moment, he hears a security guard, Byeokshu, reporting Ha-im and Yoonji's whereabouts. Temna overhears SB's conversation near Biox and realizes that she is safe. She calls out to Yeongu, saying that he can pick her up, as another Biox employee grows up behind her. However, before he can do or say anything, Yeongu hits him with a bat. He tells Ha-im to run and promises to deal with the man, but he moans that he is not a bodyguard. He followed Ha-im because he saw her corpse. They tie up a guy named Ji-yoon, blindfold him and bring him to bioethics, where they interrogate him. He explains that he just works for Biox and followed them out of curiosity. Yeongu auditions him, clean. Ji-yoon, fearing that he will be killed, begins to cry and regret his life. Ha-im demands details about her corpse. He says that before he was hired, Biox took a copy of his memories and promised that in the event of a leak, they would be reset to the backup copy. They were directed to basement level 20, to the main facility of Biox, the incinerator. This is a huge oven where waste, that is, human bodies, is cremated. But workers are told that only body parts are cremated. Gil, who is giving the tour, tells them that they can leave at any moment. Then their memories will simply reset to backup. Ji-yoon stays, and while working finds a coffin where one of Ha-im's bodies is buried. Such coffins happened periodically. He remembered them because they blocked the incinerator. One day, curiosity got the better of him, and he opened the coffin, seeing Ha-im's corpse. He could not believe his eyes. After all, he was told that there were only parts of bodies. He saw her bodies, killed by various methods, day after day, and then saw her alive in Biox as a worker. He could not believe that the director would do this to his own girlfriend. Because of the game character's words, he thought that he could become a hero in real life and do something, but instead he got hit on the head by Yeongu. Ha-im asks how he was going to help her if he decided to approach, and he admits he hasn't thought of one yet. She thinks he is reckless. She realizes that he has a second-level security pass, which is more than hers, so he can become their eyes. She removes the blindfold from his eyes. He agrees. Gyeong-hoo summons Tae-sik and puts him in a chair that blocks his movements. He turns on the video of Tae-sik trying to warn Ha-im. He asks if he will be responsible if Ha-im leaves Gyeong-hoo. Gyeong-hoo shoots Tae-sik in the knee and yells that their bond with Ha-im is strong, and someone like Tae-sik will not break them apart. He, crying, asks for forgiveness. Gyeong-hoo shows Tae-sik the clone and tells him that the weekly checkups are not needed for health, but for memory scanning. Tae-sik begs for mercy, but Kyung-hoo shoots him. Ji-yoon starts working as a spy from the next day. He recalls how Ha-im asked him to explore every floor and make a map of Biox. He asked how he would benefit from this. Baek began to threaten him, and Ha-im took on the role of a good police officer. He explained that he wanted to help. He was just looking for a job. Let them hire him after Biox. Paek promises that if he betrays them, They will lock him up and put him on the same water. In the evening, he brings them a map. All 3 levels of Biox tolerance are marked there. Above the 40th floor, only first-level employees are allowed. He only has access to the 2nd level. All he could find was the entrance to the 1st level, near the place where the human embryos are grown. He saw Secretary Gil. He followed her and saw where she was scanning her pass and retina. But Gil noticed him. She began to demand his name and department, but other level employees distracted her. This is how the team learns what is needed to penetrate the floors of the 1st level. And although the pass can be stolen, the retina scanner cannot be bypassed. Peck suggests going back to the video plan. Darkheim versus Lightheim under surveillance, it's dangerous. Plus, she wants a normal life for at least one version of herself. Peck is also against, it will be impossible to get to Haim again. Ji-yoon offers to scan Gil's iris. Jae-gon says that it would take at least an hour to scan her, and no one can do that. Haim has an idea which Yeon-gu and Jae-gong immediately pick up on. What if Gyeong-hoo's own iris is scanned while on a date with him? Peck is not happy. Gyeong-hoo calls Yoon-ji and asks why she was meeting with Ha-im. She says that she congratulated her on her new job. Gyeong-hoo reminds her that she should always let him know about meetings. When the call ends, the partner asks if Biox is threatening her. He demands not to make him worry. Ha-im calls her. Bayek calls back to Jae-gon and says that they will follow her plan. Light goes on a date with Kyung-hoo under Ji-yoon's supervision. At first, he was against his participation, but Temnaya's big eyes convinced him. Light drinks champagne with something, which Ji-yoon informs Dark. Ta calls Yoon-ji to take Gyeong-hoo on a date. He asks how the week went, and Svitla tells about it and asks if he is forcing the employees to be friendly. Kyung-hoo replies that he doesn't. Suddenly, she feels sick and excuses herself to the restroom. They mixed her a laxative that would last another hour. Temna in similar clothes walks out to Kyung-hoo. It is hard for her, she remembers his bloody face, but she sits down next to him and looks into his eyes. Gyeong-hoo asks if everything is okay. She's sweating. She says she has a little indigestion, and he suggests changing the company's menu. Yoon-ji demands that he change the subject and not talk about work, because they are not aware of the latest events. It is better to mention the university. He mentions the equation that only Ha-im solved in 2nd year. Suddenly, Ji-yoon panics. Svitla has already left the dressing room, but the scan is not complete. He delays Light so darkness can move away and hide, and promises to bring more water to the table. He gives her a double dose of laxative. However, Svetla is not at the table. She spotted Temna and followed her into the restroom. The 2 Ha-ims meet. It turns out that when Svitla was sitting in the dressing room, Peck contacted her and told her that she was a clone. She left her medicine in the dressing room and asked to see who Kyung-hoo was having dinner with. Light saw Temna even before she was distracted by Ji-yoon. Light is sure that she is not a clone, that darkness is just a thief of her identity, a fraud about whom there is a lot in the news. To prove that she is Ha-im too, she has to say something that only Ha-im knows. Temna says about the scar on her right hand. She got it saving Yoon-ji and refused to clean it because she felt guilty. Light begins to doubt. Temna says that if they are seen, they will both be in danger. Suddenly, Kyung-hoo comes up and asks if everything is okay. Light does not raise panic, but leads it. She asks why Temna is here. Ta gives her the earphone and asks the team to tell her everything as it is, and she goes to finish the scan herself. They spend the date until the end, and Temna returns home. There she sees her mother. For the first time in a long time, she asks to eat her signature soy stew. Mom grumbles at her when she eats, that her stomach is like a black hole. Ha-im starts crying and Mom immediately hugs her, asking what's wrong. In bioethics, the other Ha-im, who has learned the truth, also cries. But suddenly their facial expressions change. They are ready to fight further. Temna realizes that someone told her copies that they are clones, because that's the first thing she asked. She realizes that it is Peck. The team tells Svetlia that Temna has gone home because a camera has been hidden in her room for almost a month. Gyeong-hoo in Biox looks at the camera in Ha-im's room and thinks that even though everything is going smoothly, he's worried that she's not his, all because of the body they cannot find in the water. Suddenly, he notices that something is wrong. Svitla also notes this. She now teaches marketing every night, but Temna doesn't know that. She just goes to sleep. Gyeong-hoo contacts Gil. The next morning, Temna bursts in on bioethics. She grabs Peck by the breasts and screams at her. Peck replies that both plans are in the works. Let her do what she wants, but what if she gets caught and they all die? Isn't it better to be safe? Ha-im says that she is like Gyeong-hoo, only seeing her as a tool. Peck doesn't argue. Ha-im talk to each other and support each other. Svetla is going to work. Ha-im complains that he does not understand who she is and does not believe that she is a clone. Ji-yoon tells her the legend of Theseus's ship and how every 7 years the cells in our body are completely replaced. Does it make us a different person? This comforts Ha-im. Kyung-hoo picked up the video from the restaurant's surveillance cameras. He glares at the two Ha-ims. Baek sits in his office, looking at the man's photo and remembering Ha-im's accusations. Suddenly, she feels sick. She takes out the medicine and swallows it without drinking it. She asks the portrait of her husband if she is doing the right thing. Ha-im wear bracelets on their wrists. Dark, black, light, white, so no one confuses them. Ji-yoon says she will tell them apart anyway. Baek tells them not to chat, but to get together. If Ha-im is late for work, Gyeong-hoo will start to suspect something. Svitla and Ji-yoon go to Biox together. She asks how Ji-yoon can tell them apart. He explains that they speak and move differently. During this month, they had different experiences, and therefore began to stand out. She teases him about falling in love with her and asks who he likes more. Ji-yoon gets lost. Meanwhile, Gyeong-hoo watches the video from the restaurant and realizes that they work together. He tries to guess what they are up to. Light comes to work. She sees that her boss does not remember the last day and understands that he was killed. He says that Ha-im is calling Kyung-hoo. Ha-im comes in and says she told him they shouldn't bring up their relationship at work. He apologizes and asks if she has some secret that she is not telling. If she confesses now, he will forgive her. He approaches her. Ha-im is afraid that this is how she will be killed. Suddenly, Gyeong-hoo hugs her and tells her that he found out. She's struggling in the marketing department. Why didn't you say? Maybe translate it? He apologizes and says he should have been more sensitive. Ha-im laughs that he already has so much work. Kyung-hoo thinks that her silence was to be expected, that he wants to kill her, but then he won't be able to find another Ha-im. In the toilet, Ha-im sweats from fear. He canceled joint plans, specially gave her freedom. She knows that he knows. Suddenly, she realizes that these hugs were not for nothing. She pulls out a tracking sensor from her jacket. Kyung-hoo wanted her to take him to the other Ha-im. She cannot go to bioethics with him. Should she just go home? Ji-yoon works in the incinerator and sees the coffin again. He is afraid that Ha-im's body is there, but Tae-sik is there. Yoonji tells the truth to her partner, Kim So-nae. He is horrified, asks if all this is really so, and immediately clarifies what they will do. Yoonji yells at him that the best help is to stay away and not tell anyone. You should not risk your life because of a whim. Seon-yu says that what he likes about Yoonji is that she always does the right thing. He wants to. He will not turn a blind eye to evil. Ji-yoon is called to one of the workers. He says that even though they are forbidden to look into everything, someone will suspect something. Ji-yoon is restrained in a chair. Kyung-hoo drives to the lighthouse, sure that Ha-im is with him. He catches up to the beacon and sees Tae-sik. Ha-im stuck the sensor on someone else's jacket. Kyung-hoo smiles. She could have gone home, but she didn't. Does she challenge him? Svetla tells the team about the sensor, and she and Temna come up with a plan at the same time. Jae-gong asks to share it with the team. Suddenly, Temna asks where Ji-yoon is. The worker that Ji-yoon was summoned to is supposed to stop the particularly curious ones. He puts a gun to Yoon's head and asks for a reason not to kill him. Suddenly, he starts crying and begging him to name this reason. It is difficult for him to kill his colleagues. Ji-yoon says that he doesn't want to kill him and thinks that he can help them on the contrary. Gyeong-hoo can't find Ha-im anywhere, neither at home nor with Yoonji. She hid. He throws a photo of them together on the floor and yells, asking why she keeps running away. After all, she once said that she would always be on his side. Suddenly he smiles. She can hide as long as she wants. He will still find her. Both Ha-ims are recording media addresses, but the prepared video can be mistaken for a fake. They need to go live. Peck has a location. There are many people, and it is far from Biox. She prepared everything. Mass media, bloggers, streamers, answers to unexpected questions. Their rebellion will begin tomorrow. They cannot make even one mistake. They are interrupted by Ji-yoon. He almost died, and they push motivational speeches without him. At night, Light Ha-im goes out on the balcony and sees another Ha-im. They both can't sleep. But before her, Ji-yoon approaches darkness. He awkwardly asks her out on a date when it's all over. They both blush, and Ha-im says she's light and he likes dark. And he said that he does not get confused. In fact, this is Temna Ha-im. She pretended to be another Ha-im to refuse him. Temna says that she is not interested in a relationship. Svetla notes that Ji-yoon is great. Temna retorts that she knows, but now it's not about sentimentality. There are more important problems. Young-hoo must be caught. Light agrees. Temna shyly says that when it's all over, maybe she'll go on a date with Ji-yoon. Light sighs, smiling. Temna calls her inside when Svetla notices that her hands are shaking. She takes Dark's hand in hers. She firmly, with a smile, says not to worry. They will definitely manage. They are not alone. Temna agrees with relief. They shake each other's hands tightly like sisters. The next morning, Svetla does not come to work, reporting that she is ill. Tae-sik thinks Kyung-hoo is worried. Jung-hoo tells Secretary Gil to cancel all meetings for today. She denies that the director of Henika is already waiting. Kyung asks if he is here for logistics. Let Gil just take him to dinner, and that's it. Gil denies that Jenica is their main partner. You can't take and cancel a meeting with them. Kyung-hoo slams his palm on the table and asks how long Byeok's progress depends on subcontractors. Kyung-hoo demands to cancel the meeting once again. He's not working today. Secretary Gil bows and promises to escort the director of genomics. She is not satisfied with the director's words and behavior, but remains silent. The team is already outside. Peck demands to monitor security. During a live broadcast, you need to prepare for the worst. Kim Seon-yu, in civilian clothes, helps carry the boxes and is happy to see Yoon-ji in uniform. She has arrived. Yoon-ji introduces him to the team as her trusted colleague. So-nyu jokes that he has to work on vacation, and will he get an allowance for that? Yoon-ji grumbles back at him. Young-gu sadly looks at it from the side. He understands that he has no chance. They put lights and cameras on Ha-im. An indifferent crowd walks around. Ha-im sits, squinting anxiously, and convinces himself not to worry. She remembers Kyung-hoo's face. She was waiting for this day. She will finally be free. The team starts at 5. But when she opens her eyes, she sees Kyung-hoo right in front of the cameras. She is terrified. He smiles. The broadcast begins. In a moment of silence, Ha-im realizes what she's dreaming about. She begins to speak, introduces herself, says where she works. Her mother, who is at work, sees the live broadcast. She is surprised. Detective Ma Gang-ho sees this from his workplace too. He can't believe it. Ha-im says that she is the girlfriend of the director of Byeok's, Ji Kyung-hoo. But he doesn't have time to say anything else. Kyung-hoo walks up to her and calls her name. Ha-im is scared again. Ga-young-hoo says with a casual smile that she thought he wouldn't guess. The broadcast suddenly stops. People who started watching it on TV are surprised. Pak is evil, the rest of the team is desperate. Ha-im is on the verge of tears. Ga-young-hoo asks if she thought he didn't have his own people at the media companies. Peck grabs the first best man behind the camera, who mentions that they need a break and asks who he works for. They are surrounded by the Byeok security service. Kyung-hoo demands that she act without tricks or the broadcast will end. With a frantic look, he orders her to smile. They return to the air. He is greeted and called, realizing that they must be surprised to see him on the screen. Like what this girl said, not everyone knows that he even has a girlfriend. They have known each other for 5 years. They studied together. But after the founding of Byeok's, he began to pay less attention to her. He wants to fix it by declaring his feelings in front of everyone. Ha-im purses her lips as she listens to this. Kyung-hoo declares that they are going to get married. Ha-im is stunned by this statement. She stares at him in silence. Ha-im's mom is crying at work. Her daughter is finally getting married, and even she managed not to say anything. Kyung-hoo, meanwhile, sums up that the wedding will be grand and they will be happy with the warm words and congratulations. The broadcast takes a break and Kyung-hoo praises Ha-im for a good idea, but exhausted and broken. Kyung-hoo is triumphant. Did she really think he wouldn't find out? Is this all she is capable of? A company that is respected by the whole world and the broadcast is unclear to whom. Who will the world follow? Even if she had connections, Byeok's has nothing to claim in court. They stated that human cloning is impossible, and even with a search warrant, it is impossible to study Byeok's technologies. They are classified. Peck just leads her by the nose. Kyung-hoo demands that she remember who really cares about her. If he had not intervened, she would have simply defamed Biox and become a laughingstock. Ha-im is crying. She asks what she should do, how to destroy him. He replies that no way, unless she proves that Biox clones people, and demands to answer where Ha-im's friend is to end it. Ha-im wipes away her tears and smiles, asking where he thinks she is. Suddenly, Yoonji points a gun at Kyung-hoo and demands to be free of tricks. It turns out that this was all a maneuver to distract Kyung-hoo. He would definitely react if they leaked the information to several reporters. This was the plan of both Ha-im. Use his weakness. Kim Seo-nyu grabbed the access card from Kyung-hoo as he was going on air and handed it to Ha-im. Ha-im used it and the fake retina to infiltrate the 40th floor, Biox's first level of access, to penetrate into its very slums and reveal the truth to the world.